Hello, bowleggers, and welcome back. I'm glad you guys joined me today. A few weeks ago, I got an email from a young lady by the name of Carolyn Simpson out of West Virginia, and she was sharing her thoughts with me on her upcoming Thanksgiving dinner for next month. And she said she's always been doing like everybody else, the typical Thanksgiving dinner with a turkey and dressing, the mac and cheese and greens and stuff like that. But she said this year she wanted to think out of the box. And what she was thinking about doing was a dish called beef stroganoff. And I told her, there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you want to do and your family's okay with, you're serving that on Thanksgiving Day, go for it. So she asked me, could I do a video on beef stroganoff? She's done it before, and she said it never turns out well for her. And as she was explaining in the email about what went wrong, usually goes wrong with her beef stroganoff, I think what it is, she's either using a little too much sour cream or she's not using enough salt, one or the other. And it could be a combination of both. But today I'm going to show Carolyn as well as you guys my spin on beef stroganoff. And here we go. Let me get you set up here so you can see what I'm doing. At the moment, I got me 2 sirloin steaks. And they're pretty good sized steaks. And I'm going to cut them up with my cooking shears. But these are my sirloin steak, top sirloin steaks. And I'm going to cut those up. But what I want to do first is go around and trim this fat off of the sides, off of the edges of it. We don't want that fat. A little fat is okay due to the fact that fat does help season your steak, as well as it help add a little bit of moisture while it's cooking. So a little fat is okay, but you don't want a lot. You don't want a lot. Now we want to cut this in two. We got quite a bit of membrane in there needs to come off. We don't want any of the membrane. So we're going to go back. See all that membrane there? You don't want that. Just cut that out, cut that away. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It could be a little bit left on there. So, but get the biggest of it off if you can. The membrane and the fat. Because doing beef stroganoff, you pretty much want just the straight, lean meat. It's all you're pretty much looking for. And like I said, a little fat doesn't hurt. A little fat doesn't hurt, but you don't want a lot. Now that's a good strip of beef there. We don't want to lose that, so we cut that off. All right. And see what I'm going to do. Well, here's another big clop of fat right here. Want to get rid of that. All right. And what we want to do, this here is a little too thick. So we want to cut this here into 2 strips. Because when you're doing beef stroganoff, you want your beef you could do it either in cubes or strips, either way. I typically do mine in little strips. And the thinner your strips are, the quicker your meat cooks, and the less time you have to worry about stir frying it. It cooks a lot quicker. So let's get this here cut into strips. And the way I do it, I cut them in little strips like that. About that size there. And we're just going to keep on until you have it cut down to the size you want. And I'm not going to hold you guys up and let you and bore you seeing me do this. I'm going to get my because I have 2 of them, two flanks to cut up. I got guests coming for dinner this evening. So I'm making quite a bit. But like I said, you want to cut your strips like this. Just go straight up that top sirloin and just cut it in strips. And after you cut your strips, you want to go back and cut your strips in about 2-inch sections. Beef stroganoff is a dish I've always liked. I don't cook it often, but I love it, and I've had it ordered it at restaurants several times. And restaurants pretty much when they do their beef stroganoff, they serve it with an extra sauce on the side, which is that cream gravy that you cook it in. They normally serve that with a little extra on the side. What I do, I make a little extra in the pan when I make it, so I don't have to worry about that extra on the side thing. And remember now, we want to cut, that needs to cut in half. You don't want it thick. There we go. Cut it in half, cut it in half, cut it in half. There we go. But now, beef stroganoff doesn't take long to cook. About the most time-consuming thing is what I'm doing now, is cutting up my meat. That's about the most time-consuming thing. It's not that hard. It's a pretty simple dish to make. You could make it in a good about 30 minutes or less. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and finish cutting my strips up. And I'm going to let you guys go, and I'll bring you back once I have all my strips cut up and show you the very next step. So I'll see you guys in a few. Just hang out. All right, guys, welcome back. I have all my beef cut up in strips, and now I'm getting ready to cut my onion up. I got one large onion, and I'm going to cut it up in strips to where it will be. I don't want to dice it, because in beef stroganoff you want to be able to see it, taste your onion as well as see it well. So we're going to cut it in strips, and what I've done, I've cut it in half, and I'm going to go down just like this. And just go straight through. Same for the other side. You don't want it diced. You want strips, kind of long, large strips. Because as you know, the onion is going to cook down and caramelize. So these long strips will still be in there, but they will be soft. All right. That's our onion. Now let me get you guys turned over here to my stove. I got a pan going. And I have about a fourth of I would say about 3 tablespoons of olive oil in my pan. So what I'm going to do now is to put my onion in. And my beef, strips of beef. And we're going to saute this together. And we just want to move it around. Break our onions up. I tell you what, guys, let me get you over here where you can see a little bit better. There we go. There you go. Now, we want to break our onions up into little strips. And put our seasoning on there. And we're going to season it with about a teaspoon and a half of salt. And about a teaspoon of black pepper. our beef stir-fried and brown. What we want to do next is get our noodles on. And you're going to need about 3 cups of egg noodles. And I got my water already boiling for my egg noodles. And these are the egg noodles that I'm going to use here. And this is my pot of boiling water for my egg noodles. So it's good and boiling, and I'm going to go ahead and drop my egg noodles in now so they can go ahead and be cooking. And you want them to cook completely through. You don't want them soggy. You want them to cook, but once they reach a firm doneness, you want to turn them off instantly. You don't want them soggy, and you don't want them al dente. And you're going to cook them in about 5 cups of water. And let me add a little salt to that. All right. Man, this is smelling great. I wish you guys could smell it. Turn my fire up just a little bit. Go ahead and get this brown. Like I said, it's a simple dish to make. It's not hard. It sounds hard, beef stroganoff. Most people, when you mention beef stroganoff, oh, it's a lot of steps. It's time consuming. It's quite a few steps, but to me, it's not time consuming. Like I said, you can really put it together in a good 35, 40 minutes. It's not that time consuming. My mom used to make it when we were growing up. She made beef stroganoff kind of frequent. And she made, and the way I'm making mine today is identical to the way my mom used to make her beef stroganoff. So once again, like I tell you guys, 95% of the recipes that you see me do is my mom, and about 5% of them are actually my recipes. Because that was my inspiration when it came to cooking, was my mother. And believe it or not, it was 2 other people that was a great inspiration to me when I was growing up cooking. And that was the infamous Julia Childs. Yes, I used to watch Julia Childs, and I was just enthralled by the way she could do things. And what was really special about Julia Childs is that she could make a mistake in the kitchen, and she wouldn't try to cover it up. She would make a mistake in the kitchen, and back then they didn't have, well, I'm sure they had editing, but everything she did pretty much at that time was live. And you know, when you go live, anything comes up, comes out. You can't take it out. And she was okay with it. She'd go in, she'd apologize for it and keep the flow moving. And I like that about her. And the other person that I was influenced by that I used to enjoy watching was an old gentleman out of New Orleans called Justin Wilson. He was a great Louisiana chef that, well, he wasn't a chef, he was a cook. Pretty much like myself. He was a cook and cooked quite a few Louisiana dishes and some other dishes also. Not just Louisiana Cajun style dishes, but quite a few other dishes he would cook. But he was a great cook. But I'm sure both of them at this time now have passed on, but they've left behind some great recipes. And believe it or not, a lot of the cooks you see today, Martha Stewart, Rachel Ray, Bobby Flay, a lot of those guys are using a lot of those recipes that Justin Wilson as well as Julia Childs used. Because believe it or not, those recipes still stand tried and true today. But they was 2 awesome cooks. And this was back like in the late 60s, early 70s when Justin Wilson and Julia Childs was really, had they good, actually the first cooking shows on television. All right, guys, as you can see, my beef is browning up very good, very good. And what I want to do now is just continue to let it brown. Probably, it's good and brown all the way through, but it's not done. It needs to cook probably another 15 minutes. So what I'm going to do is leave it in here. I'm going to get a lid, a top rather. Lid, top, whatever you want to call it. I call them lids. But I'm going to put a lid on it and smother it. And then, believe it or not, smothering it will help it cook even faster. So I tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go for a moment. And I'll bring you back in a few. And I'll let you see, once it's finished browning, I'll let you see the finished product of it before I move into my next step. So I'll see you in a few. All right, guys, welcome back. Now we're going to go ahead. My meat is almost done. It's not quite done yet, but now we're going to go ahead and add our mushrooms. And we got 1 pound of diced mushrooms that we're going to add to our steak and onions while they're simmering, cooking. Like I said, they're almost done, but they're not quite done yet. So let's go ahead and add our pound of mushroom. And that's a complete pound. Want to move that around a little bit. Get our mushrooms all sauteed in there to absorb some of that flavor. Perfect, perfect. And now what we want to do is return our top back to the pan so it can continue to steam. And it needs probably about another good 15 minutes for the mushrooms. And then I'll bring you guys back for the next step. See you in a few. All right, guys, the beef and the mushrooms both are done. So now what we're going to do, we're going to add 1 tablespoon of minced garlic. Let me get you back on the pan. 1 tablespoon of minced garlic. And we're going to add 1/4 cup of flour. And this is self-rising flour. And you want to get that moved around real good. Let me get you guys back over here where you can see down in the pan real good. Because I don't want you to miss this step, because this is one of the most crucial steps to the dish. Is once you put your flour in, you want to keep it moving. And you don't want to see any more white. As long as you see the white flour, you'll be able to taste the white flour. You don't want to see that. You want everything to turn brown. And at that time, we're going to add our beef broth. Just keep stirring, keep stirring. And at this time, you might get a little nervous. You might get a little scared. Like, oh, I've ruined it. It's clumped up. It's a mess. Trust me, it'll all pan out once you put your beef broth in there. All right, now we have all our, you see no more white. So that means all our flour have incorporated into our beef and onions. So we can go ahead now and add our beef broth. And we're going to add about 1.5 cups. Turn your fire all the way up on high. And you want to add about 1.5 cups of beef broth. And any little scrapings you feel that's on the bottom of your pan, you want to scrape those up, because trust me, that is some good seasoning right there. You don't want to miss that. So any of that flour that's on the bottom of your pan, give it a gentle scrape and loosen it up well. Oh, this smells great. It really smells great, guys. I wish you could smell it. Wish you could smell it. All right, now we want to bring this to a boil. And by the way, our noodles are done. I got them sitting aside waiting. So they are good and ready to go. Waiting on the meat. There you go. Just keep it moving. Keep scraping the bottom of that pan and get all those brown and little particles on the bottom of the pan that may have stuck. Because like I said, that is helping season and flavor your meat as well as your sauce. Just keep it going. Gonna add a little bit more beef broth. We'll just go ahead and add all of it because it isn't but a drop left anyway. There we go. Oh yeah. We are in business. We are in business. Look good. It's looking good and smells good. And at this time, like I said, now the critical part is over with. You just want to continue to stir for about 2 or 3 minutes. And the last and final step is we're going to add about a 1/4 cup of sour cream. And we're going to go ahead now and add that because we've come to a good steady boil. So what we want to do now is take our heat back down to a medium heat and go ahead and add our sour cream. And like I said, we're going to add about 1/4 of a cup. All right. Now we want to get that mixed in well. There we go. And guys, if you if you hear that little shark song in the background, my granddaughter's in the next room listening to her favorite song, Daddy Shark, Mommy Shark, whatever the name of it is. But she loved that little song. So you might hear it in the background from time to time. All right. That looks great, guys. That looks great, and it smells even better. Now, what we want to do now is just let this simmer for about a good 10 minutes, and that's pretty much it. You have completed your beef stroganoff. And I tell you guys what, I'm going to go ahead and let this simmer for about a good 10 minutes, and then I'll bring you guys back and let you see me put it together, and we'll take a bite. So I'll see you in a few. Talk to you then. Bye-bye. All right, guys, our entire beef stroganoff meal is complete. The noodles and the beef. Let me go ahead and put together a little bit so you can see the final product of it. These are the noodles. And this is my beef. And while I'm at it, I might as well take a bite. Sorry about that, guys. My camera fell over. As we say, everything in the kitchen isn't perfect. We're going to have mistakes, but look, this is the finished product. That's our finished product right there, beef stroganoff. And let's take a bite and see what it tastes like. Mmm, delicious. Seasoned well, beef is tender. The gravy is superb. So you guys ought to give this dish a try. I think you'll like it. And if you do, don't forget to hit me on my email at rickyj429@gmail.com. I hope you guys have a blessed day. Always try and be someone blessing. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That's my granddaughter. She's saying bye-bye also. Goodbye, folks.